So a viewer from Swift County wants us to talk about the gas tax, and wondering what's going to happen with the governor's 20-cent gas tax, what the alternatives might be, how that might be implemented. So let's start with you, Senator Howe. You serve on the Transportation Committee.
I do, and I'm not a big fan of the 20-cent gas tax, and everybody talks about the gas tax, but the governor's proposal has a lot more to it than the gas tax. You have, I think there's 4 different raises in the tab fees. There's an increase in the motor vehicle tax, and so and then they adjust the depreciation of your vehicle so you pay more longer. And so with all of that, I think I figured it up for a new vehicle. It's about $4,500 a year, and I don't think that that's the right method to go. In fact, the first 7 cents out of that 20 cents goes to pay back, because what he does is that great stuff I just mentioned about what we did in 2017, all of that gets wiped out and it goes back to the general fund, and it takes about 7 cents out of the 20-cent gas tax just to pay back what we did in 17.
So it's a net 13-cent tax increase then?
In 4 years, yes. Or in actually, I think the proposal that came was in 2 years.
Yeah, it's in 2 years, yeah.
So I think that's way too much too quick, but that's my viewpoint. I don't think it's the right way to go. It's the most regressive tax to the people that can least afford it, especially out there in rural Minnesota, where we don't have an option but to drive. And where if you're in the metro area, you've got more options for transit, that type of thing. But out in rural Minnesota, you have to drive. And the folks that this hits the hardest are the people that can't buy the new car, are driving an older vehicle, doesn't get great gas mileage, and so it hurts the people that can't afford it the worst. I mean, I know that I just heard on the TV the other day that some people are within $400 of being homeless. Well, I figured this out. If you're driving an 11-year-old vehicle, with the tax increase and the average amount of driving that most folks do, and most people out there are a 2-vehicle family, it's about, the least it could be is $450 a year. So people could technically put people out of their homes, and that's the scary part of this deal, and how I don't think it's the right way to go.
Senator Isaacson, gas tax transportation issues. What do you think?
Well, I would start off by saying we have a governor that won by the widest margin ever, and the first thing he talked about everywhere he went was raising the gas tax. So I'm a little incredulous when I hear people being surprised about him coming out with a very robust tax plan. I share some of Senator's concerns about how we're calling the money back on the first 7 cents. I'm not sure that I understand as a funding mechanism how that increases the general fund and will increase to the transportation budget. But I have to say that, the reality is that our state is a high investment state, right? My friends across the aisle call it a high tax state. And I remind folks that these things aren't just magically occurring, right? We try to have good roads, we have a great environment, we have good education, and that's something we as citizens invest in. And if there's one thing that we can stay focused on is when you pay your gas tax, that's going to go pay for your roads. And we all agree the roads are a mess. And so I would remind my friends across the aisle that just a year or two ago, they put out a $500 million tax cut to corporations. And if we had not done that, there'd be $100 million sitting in our budget right now, and there wouldn't be a need for a lot of these things. And so I struggle with some of the characterizations, and I share some of the concerns that Senator Howe has as well. I think that we have to be asking ourselves some questions about where our tax policy does the most good, does the least harm. But the reality is that, let's be honest, our state is not fiscally sound. We have about $1 billion in transportation we have to do, another couple $1 billion in HEAPR. We've got a crisis going on with our disabled communities. We have a ton of areas where we've been just cutting to the bone in education, cutting to the bone in regular higher education, and we have to make some priorities of where we think things are going to go. And we got to move that money around to be in the right spot. And so I don't think a 20-cent gas tax is what's going to go through. I think that was the governor's opening line. I think it's a convenient talking point, not necessarily for you, sir, but for my friends across the aisle. I think the reality is there's going to be a negotiation involved. And when that happens, hopefully a tax increase in the gas tax, if it can work out, that's more prudent and manageable than I think what some people characterize 20 cents at.
Any further thoughts on transportation?
Well, and I think that there's investment that does need to be made. There's no doubt about it. But what that amount is questionable, and I think there's a lot of choices to be made. There's a lot of leakage out of the Highway Trust Fund, and what we need to do is figure out how we cut back. I mean, I noticed that most agencies and most places, colleges and universities, have to bond to put roofs on their buildings, to repair it. But I noticed just the other day, there's a line in the MnDOT's fund, in the transportation deal, where they take almost 60 million, 58.8 million for buildings. I truly believe that shouldn't be coming out of the highway trunk fund. That should be coming, if they need to do that, they should bond for it, just like every other agency.
I agree.
That's a huge leakage out of the transportation fund that we need to fix.
So first we have it's not a question, but a statement. A viewer from Rockville, community you're familiar with, says, fix the potholes. We have delivered that message. And then we have a viewer from Plymouth, which is, I guess, a little bit east of you.
Yeah.
But this viewer wants to know, what about toll roads? Has anybody ever talked about toll roads to help fund transportation?
No, that's a horrible idea.
We're in agreement.
In a rare moment of bipartisanship, that is, we're not the East
Bad
Coast,
idea.
and that's not how we do things around
I will
here.
tell you that my daughter lives in Boston. My youngest son and I were out in Boston visiting, and he was in the back seat, and we were on a bad road. It was terrible, and it was a toll road. And he said, I'll never complain about Minnesota's roads again. And that was a toll road that you would have thought would have been a premium drive.
Listen, I'm still trying to sell my community on roundabouts. We can't possibly get near toll roads. That's ridiculous.
I'm in on roundabouts, so traffic
Well,
circles.
the math
that
is
win.
there, but yeah.